The Broken Swing. Author unknown. What is the scariest story you've ever heard? For me, it was a story told by my friend about her last winter break. Wanting to have some time for herself, she rented a cabin in a remote mountain for a week. When she arrived, she noticed a broken swing in the front yard. One of its chains had fallen off, and its seat was buried in snow. My friend had an eerie feeling toward the swing, but she decided to ignore it. After all, other than the swing, the cabin looked exactly how it was advertised. The day went on quietly, with nothing interesting happening. At around 10 p.m., she was getting ready for sleep. It was a bit earlier than her usual sleeping time, but since there was nothing to do anyway, it's better to catch some beauty sleep. So, she turned the lights off and threw herself onto the bed. That's when she heard a creaking sound just outside the cabin. My friend could barely decipher what the sound was. It sounded like someone playing on the swing. But that's impossible, as the only swing was broken. She tried to shrug it off, thinking that it was the wind. It was an old cabin after all, but the sound only got louder and louder. My friend wanted to look out the window and find out what was making the sound, but somehow she just couldn't bring herself to do it. Maybe it was fear, or maybe it was exhaustion. She then covered her head with her pillow and tried her best to ignore the sound. In the morning, she went outside to check on the swing. It was still broken, and there was no sign that someone had been there. She then noticed an old man taking a morning stroll nearby. After a brief chit-chat, she told him about what happened the night before and asked if he knew anything about it. The man told her about a little girl who once lived in the cabin. She had a strange attachment towards that swing and would spend most of her time playing on it. Even after her unfortunate death a decade ago, she could still be seen playing on the swing at night. My friend didn't believe in ghosts or anything supernatural, but she found the story quite amusing. So, she decided to play along. But sir, how can the girl play on the swing if it's broken? My friend asked. Oh, she uses her hair. On the way yet? Deleted author. Years ago, my fiancé and I decided to spend a holiday weekend at her family's cabin in the countryside. It was remote and beautiful, perfect for a romantic getaway. But that night, my boss kept me late at the office. I told her I would be out the door by 5:30, but I didn't leave until 8:15. I thought she would be upset, but after driving a while, she texted me a picture of herself in the cabin, wearing one of the sexiest outfits I had ever seen, with the message, "How fast can you get here?" That became our little tradition every year. It worked out perfectly. I would stay late at the office and get so much work done that I could afford one extra day away from work to add to our vacation, while she would go to the cabin ahead of time to tidy up, as well as send me racy pictures and messages with lines like, "On the way yet?" I had been driving for over an hour. Halfway there, I was so excited. My phone was dying, so I didn't dare touch it in order to keep the battery alive. Suddenly it vibrated. I giddily swiped open the phone to see a few close-ups of my wife, from the neck down, in stunning nightwear, along with a message, "On the way yet?" A few minutes went by, and my phone vibrated again. I stopped the car. It was my wife, with a gag in her mouth, and a large gloved hand brushing away tears from her cheek. "How fast can you get here?" A late spring snow. Author deleted. It had been snowing for 3 days straight when we realized we had a big problem. It was supposed to have been a weekend getaway, a couple of days in the mountains, just the 5 of us. We only packed enough food for the weekend. I don't know that any of us even looked at the weather. It was late May, for God's sake. Snow was the last thing on our minds. By the time the food had run out and the drifts were as high as the window panes, we knew we were screwed. The 2 cars in the driveway were white lumps in the distance, unmovable until the sun came back out to melt everything away. The generator ran out of gas by the 4th day, and by the 5th, the firewood was dwindling for the wood stove. We huddled, shivering, around the pitiful fire, dressed in every scrap of clothing we had packed. "We should have left when it first started," said Beverly. Cameron snarled. "You've made your point, Bev. We all know your opinion." "Well, I'm just saying, who knows how long the snow—" Beverly trailed off as a scream erupted across the room. We turned to look at Esther. "I'm burning!" she screamed and began tearing off her clothing piece by piece. "I'm burning!" We all looked at each other. I assumed Esther had gotten too close to the stove, had caught fire, but she was nowhere near it. When she had stripped down to the skin, I looked away. I didn't look up again until I heard the cabin door opening. Esther stood in the doorway, skin red and goose-pimpled in the frigid air. She had already run into the snow before any of us knew what happened. Jason was the next to go. The next morning he broke into a sweat as we sat around the small fire. We watched as he fidgeted in his seat, peeling his jacket off first. The other articles of clothing followed, each removal punctuated by a shriek. When he opened the door, we were prepared. We grabbed him and held him back. He turned to us, and anger flashed upon his face. "Let me go!" "Jason, come on, buddy. You don't know what you're doing. You're just hungry and scared. We all are. Come on, let's go back inside," I said, holding Jason's arm as tightly as I could. "You don't understand. I am burning." Jason practically roared at us before wrenching his arms free. We could only watch as he ran into the blinding whiteness. Cameron followed suit the next day, and Beverly the one after that. It's just me here now, and I can hear the tap-tap-tapping of the melting snow against the roof. If I can make it just a few more days, I can get out of here. I just wish it wasn't so hot. I just wish I weren't burning up. The Prospector and the Demon, written by the Prowler. Lord help me, my intentions were honorable. I left home seeking monetary fortune for my family, which led me to the Saskatoon Valley, a beautiful region in the mountainous parts of Arkansas. Rumors were afoot of prospecting along the river and its branched-off streams that cut across the valley. I found a secluded but conveniently located cabin where I find myself at this very moment, watching the walls close in and the time ticking away at my life. I wasn't here but for a few hours when I found my first nugget of gold, shimmering underneath the light of the sun as I sifted it from the river. The longer I stayed, the more gold I found. I obviously picked a proper spot. Untapped land that had been unsullied by the hands of strangers. Until my own, anyway. But it was obvious no one else had come across these parts. At the end of the first day, I collected my findings and headed back to the cabin, surrounded by a lifetime's worth of gold. I could have, and should have, left for home the next morning. Of course, I did not. The thought of me being the first person to prospect here and leave all the rest of the gold to be collected by someone else seemed ludicrous to me. It was already a miracle that the prior inhabitants of this cabin didn't stumble upon this gold mine. I was stricken by the gold fever and the greed that had plagued man for centuries. The next morning I was early to rise. When I made my way back to the stream, I moved a little further south from the previous day's location and struck gold once again. I couldn't believe my luck. I toiled in that stream all day, and once the sun began to set, I once again had another satchel filled with gold. Oh my, with all the stars in the sky, why didn't I leave this cursed place? But like a fly hovering around a jackass's testicles, I stayed, and I continued to collect gold at an abundance. Day after day, it seemed like I collected more than the previous. I was there for about a week when I hit my first dry spell. It was drier than a preacher's bed sheets, I'll tell you. That was also the day I met the fella who sealed my fate. He seemed to come out of nowhere, sneaking up on me from behind as I was becoming quite frustrated with the day's events. He tapped me on the shoulder with his old bony finger. Goddamn hermit living up in the mountains, smelling of cougar piss and badger shit. I shouted at him, "Don't touch what you can't afford, you old bastard!" I looked upon him in disbelief, shaking and shivering before my eyes, bone thin with long gray matted hair. He spoke to me in a whistling, raspy voice, almost as if each syllable was passing gas as he spoke them. I asked him what he was doing up here. His only reply was he was forgotten by time, alone and living in a cave atop the mountain. He just stood there, smiling at me. His teeth looked like a once white picket fence turned yellow, in front of an old abandoned house. He started towards me. I quickly pulled my revolver from my holster and shouted for him to stay put. He had a rabid look to him, like he had been getting high from a skunk's asshole all afternoon. He smelled like one, too, combined with the smell of a wheel of cheese that was left to ferment under the sun for 10 days. He raised his bony limb up and said, "There's no need for violence, mister. I've been watching you for the past week, and I notice your luck has finally run out. But lucky for you, I'm also an adventurer and explorer like yourself. I have the perfect item that will make your excursion here a success." I scoffed at first. What the hell could an old mountain hermit have that was so valuable? I told him no thank you, and told him to go about his business. I'm not interested in fossilized squirrel turds or old used deer vagina pelts. He then hit me with the intrigue. He proceeded to tell me about an ancient book he discovered while rooting around in a crevice deep inside the cave that he calls home. I'm sure an ancient text such as this could fetch quite the pretty penny for the right book collector, he said convincingly. Well, I must say I was stricken with curiosity at this point, and agreed to follow him to his cave dwelling. My nostrils did not thank me for having to follow his odors downwind, but hopefully my billfold would be thankful after this transaction. After about a 30-minute hike, we finally reached the entrance to his cave. I hadn't stepped foot inside it, and I already felt like I was about to keel over from the noxious fumes. A smorgasbord of anal decay hit my nostrils. It truly was a charcuterie of rectal discharge and death that wafted from the opening of the cave. I walked in and saw the origin of the smells. The old hermit bastard had a lifetime's worth of shit in one corner of the cave, and in another corner, stacks of dead animal carcasses that were also expelling their waste. Hot damn, old-timer! You're supposed to do your shitting outside of the cave and dispose of those carcasses when you're through. How can you live in this ungodly stench? I exclaimed. I guess I've grown accustomed to the aroma, Sonny. I can't smell a damn thing. Now follow me to the book, he replied as he wagged his finger. I followed hesitantly, holding the rag I had in my back pocket up to my nose, trying to fight through the fumes. He led me down a short corridor to the left, and at the end of it sat the book. It was displayed like a shrine, atop a rock pedestal, surrounded by candles. But these were no candles I had ever seen before. They were long, thin, and brown. I was drawn to the candle's glow, almost hypnotized, if you will, and it was giving off an intoxicating, nutty, and gamey aroma. Where you find candles like these, old-timer? I've never seen nor smelt candles like these before, I asked wonderingly. I crafted them from my own feces, he replied as he handed me the book in question. The old hermit wasn't lying. The book looked ancient. It was a book about demonology and summoning the dead. It was the devil's work. While it wasn't my cup of tea, it made me feel uneasy holding it. I definitely knew it would fetch a pretty penny from one of those East Coast high society housewives that needed something to read in their parlors. I thanked the old man for the find and started to head out. I didn't want to spend another moment there, surrounded by that stench. As I walked back out to the center of the cave, however, the hermit spoke. Not so fast, Sonny. You're here for a reason. I must introduce you to my master, he growled sinisterly. He then started speaking in a language I'd never heard before. Then every candle in the cave instantly lit by itself. What sorcery is this, old man? I screamed in terror. He continued mumbling in that foreign tongue. Then in the corner of the cave, the lifetime's worth of shit from the hermit's ass began to shimmy and shake, and out of its stockpile formed a mid-sized chocolatey figure. The hermit then barked, Behold my master Stoolzebub, the demon of shit and all unholy excrement, and you're here to be his next sacrifice. Stoolza who? What the hell is a Stoolzebub? I asked. Silence, Sonny. You will bow before the demon of shit. As he screamed this, he shot out the loudest fart I had ever heard, and with such force it caused his poncho to flap up, and his long matted hair to flow in the wind that came from his ass. It was like a storm, and the brown cloud was heading in my direction. He was trying to knock me unconscious from the hurricane ass cloud I was about to be enveloped in. Just then I heard a low cackle from the corner of shit. It was Stoolzebub, and he was admiring his handiwork. He proclaimed I was now his, just one of his countless victims throughout history. Then the dead animal carcasses started to gyrate in the opposite corner of the cave. Then the bowels of the animals expelled a fudge substance from their decayed, hollowed-out anuses, that formed shit copies of themselves. I was now being surrounded by a coterie of shit. I stood there not knowing what to do, contemplating my life's choices, and on the verge of passing out. The hermit then barked out of nowhere. "I see your eyes sagging, sonny. You're about to succumb to the old familiar. That's ass and death." I don't think so, I thought. I can't go out like this. I then pulled out my 6-shooters, fired and ran out of the cave. But the shit brigade was hot on my heels, however, and followed me back to the cabin. Now here I sit. I can smell them through the walls. This is the end. Hope is lost. I'm surrounded by an army of shit. The rules for camping at Blackwood. Author unknown. If you have decided to camp here, you understand that strange things happen in this forest, and accept that we will not be held responsible for injuries, trauma, or even death that may occur to you or your party. These are the rules to camping here. Number 1. Be in your tent or cabin before 11:30 p.m. and do not leave until 4:30 a.m. Number 2. Always keep some type of radio with you at all times, preferably a handheld radio. Every night between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m., there is a chance of a song or loud static playing. Each sound calls for different responses. Number 3. If the song "Turn to Stone" by Electric Light Orchestra begins playing, pack up all of your things and leave your cabin or tent at exactly 4:30 a.m. You must be out of the woods by 5 a.m. The night is not always more dangerous than the day. Number 4. If the song "Lakeshore Drive" begins playing, this means you are in a cabin with a fireplace. Once the words of the song start, you must never look at the fireplace until the song ends. There will be many sounds coming from the fireplace, but you must never look. Number 5. If the song "Mr. Blue Sky" by Electric Light Orchestra begins playing, this means you are in a tent. Stay completely still and turn off all lights until the song ends. You will hear heavy footsteps outside. Do not look. Number 6. If loud static begins playing, exit your tent or cabin immediately and run. Do not stop even when you run out of breath or when your legs start to cramp. Run until you are out of the woods, and pray you don't run into it on the way. If you see a bench, telephone booth, or ranger on the way, do not stop to interact with any of them. Number 7. If the sky is any color but blue, do not swim in the lake. Number 8. If you see footprints at your campsite that are not yours or a party member's, alert a ranger from a ranger station outside of the woods immediately. The natives are looking for a sacrifice. Number 9. If you see smoke in the distance, do not try to find the source. The natives do not take kindly to visitors. Number 10. If you find a dead, blood-red deer in the woods, say, "Spare me, for I am but a witness," into your radio. If you receive nothing but static, you were fast enough. If you received a response, it's already too late. Number 11. If you find a dead bear in the woods with its eyes missing and its tongue laying on the ground next to it, then you must never leave the shadows until 7:30 p.m. Number 12. Do not harm the plants or animals of Blackwood. Thank you for choosing Blackwood. Have a good trip. The Cabin in Whispering Woods by Shroudedheart. Preserved within these ancient woods, I stand as a relic of a sinister past, now lost to the encroaching wilderness. Once, I was the sanctuary of a monster, a serial killer whose wicked deeds forever scarred these woods. I bore witness to unspeakable horrors that strained my very being. Within my walls, the echoes of torment and suffering still reverberate, trapped in an eternal cycle of despair. Nature's tendrils have claimed my worn frame, their gnarled fingers tightly embracing me as a captive of time. Deep lines etched upon my weathered facade tell the story of my countless seasons. Ivy and moss weave a tapestry along my decaying exterior, as if nature herself mourns the darkness that dwelled within. The woods, once accomplices in a reign of terror, have turned against me. The towering trees cast their twisted shadows upon me, as if joining in the condemnation of my dark history. Skeletal branches point accusing fingers. Their whispers echo the sins I have harbored. Through the night. The wind howls, carrying with it anguished cries of forgotten victims, a mournful symphony that echoes through the woods. Their restless spirits haunt these unhallowed halls, forever trapped in the purgatory of their suffering. The air within these worn walls hangs heavy with the lingering stench of decay, a constant reminder of the evil deeds that transpired. My windows, once clear portals to the outside world, now obscured by the grime of time's passage. They hide the horrors they have witnessed. My door's creaking hinges reveal chambers of despair, a chilling narrative of pain and devastation, each room holding the secrets of his macabre rituals. Walls etched by cryptic symbols and grotesque artwork. Dark stains mar the floors, remnants of his unspeakable acts that unfolded within my confinements. I am cursed, bound to bear witness to the terrors inflicted upon the innocent. An ominous presence still lingers within me. Footsteps echo through my hollow halls, a haunting reminder of the relentless pursuit of wickedness that transpired within. The woods themselves whisper tales of dread and tragedy, their ancient secrets intertwined with my dark past. Nature recoils from the darkness that once dwelled within my walls, as if shunning the malevolence that tainted our peaceful embrace. Nightfall becomes a canvas for apparitions, the spirits of the killer's victims forever trapped in spectral purgatory. They silently beseech any wanderer to flee, to escape the clutches of the darkness that still lingers. Beware, weary traveler, I implore you, heed my urgent plea and retreat. Unleash not the horrors that lurk within, for I am forever tainted by unspeakable sins. These woods conceal grim secrets, entwined in their sinister history. Flee into the comforting embrace of light, for my haunted chambers hold naught but relentless darkness and the malevolent legacy of a serial killer's reign. Let instinct guide your steps to safety, lest you be ensnared by the maleficent specters that haunt this place. The Whispering Shadows by NetherPlaysVR. In the sleepy town of Willowbrook, nestled amidst the dense woods, an aura of unease lingered, a hushed secret passed down through generations. It was said that the Whispering Shadows, a spectral presence, haunted the woods and brought doom to those who ventured too close. Emily, a young photographer with an adventurous spirit, had recently moved to Willowbrook, drawn to its natural beauty. Eager to capture the essence of the town, she set off into the woods one crisp autumn afternoon, her camera slung over her shoulder. As she ventured deeper into the forest, the dense canopy above began to swallow the sunlight, and the air grew heavy with a palpable tension. Unbeknownst to Emily, a local legend warned against wandering too far into the woods alone. The Whispering Shadows were said to be vengeful spirits of those who had met gruesome fates, and they preyed on intruders. But curiosity, like a dark force, compelled her forward. Soon, Emily lost her way, the trees forming an impenetrable maze around her. Her heart pounded with fear as she heard faint, chilling whispers, like the murmurs of restless souls. She tried to retrace her steps, but every path seemed to lead her deeper into the darkness. As night fell, Emily's fear intensified. The whispers grew louder, and she could feel an unseen presence closing in. She snapped photographs in all directions, hoping to capture evidence of what lurked among the trees. But when she reviewed the pictures, her blood ran cold. In each photo, shadowy figures seemed to loom, their eyes glowing with malevolence. Desperation drove Emily onward, her flashlight trembling in her trembling hand. The forest, once alive with chirping crickets and rustling leaves, now held an eerie silence. She stumbled upon an old, decrepit cabin hidden deep within the woods, its windows shattered and its door hanging off its hinges. Cautiously, she entered, her heart pounding with trepidation. The interior was shrouded in darkness, save for a flickering candle at the far end. Emily approached, her breath catching in her throat when she saw a series of photographs displayed on the cabin's walls. They were images of people, their eyes hollow and filled with despair, their skin unnaturally pale. In every photograph, the Whispering Shadows loomed in the background. Emily realized the grim truth. The cabin had belonged to a previous victim, and these were their final moments, captured in chilling detail. She turned to flee, but the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her in this nightmarish cabin. The Whispering Shadows materialized before her, their ghostly forms contorted in agony. They whispered tales of their torment and despair, filling Emily's mind with horrors beyond imagination. She clutched her camera, snapping one final photograph as her sanity unraveled. Weeks later, search parties combed the woods for Emily, but they found only her camera, lying on the ground outside the cabin. The photographs it contained were a testament to her nightmarish encounter. Willowbrook's legend of the whispering shadows lived on, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked in the heart of the woods, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to wander too close. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.